A barren hilltop under harsh moonlight. The thin air of the Afghan mountains carried sporadic gunfire that echoed through the night, mixing with the shrieking wind. Lieutenant James Iron Blackwood pressed his face against the weathered boulder, studying the unforgiving terrain through his PVS-31 night vision goggles. The landscape revealed itself in eerie green, jagged rocks, sparse vegetation, and sight lines that favored anyone holding the high ground. SEAL Team Bravo 4 was in desperate condition. Their SOS signals had been transmitting continuously for the past hour, receiving only absolute silence in return. "Sir, we're running low on options here," Master Sergeant Mike Wilson whispered, checking the magazine on his M4A1. Only 4 mags left between them and at least 15 hostiles closing in. The thermal signatures on Wilson's scope showed the enemy was moving with disturbing precision. Not Taliban, something else. Blackwood nodded grimly. 14 years of special operations had taught him when a situation was deteriorating beyond salvation. This was one of those times. The helicopter extraction had gone catastrophically wrong when their Black Hawk developed critical engine failure 3 clicks from the landing zone. Now his team of 4 was pinned down in a depression that offered minimal cover from the elevated position surrounding them. "Contact front, Sergeant Catherine." Hawk Reynolds' voice cracked through their comms as muzzle flashes erupted from the ridgeline above. The enemy had found them. Thick fog rolled through the valley like a living thing, reducing visibility to mere meters. The temperature had dropped to an unseasonable -10 degrees Celsius. Weather was their enemy now. Then, cutting through static and despair, a voice, female, cold and precise. "Bravo 4, this is Phantom. I've received your coordinates. Hold your position." Wilson froze, his eyes widening behind his tactical goggles. "Is that her?" he whispered, almost reverent. The radio silence stretched like a held breath before the voice returned. 15 hostiles approaching from the northwest ridge. 8 more from the southern valley. 2 snipers positioned on the eastern slope. They've almost completed their encirclement. Reynolds exchanged glances with Blackwood. How could she possibly know that? "We can't even see the southern approach from here." As if in answer, a single shot rang out from somewhere in the darkness. Sharp, definitive. A mile away on the western slope, a muzzle flash that had been peppering their position went permanently dark. "Bravo 4, I am Rachel Morgan," the voice said. "I'm positioned 2,100 meters northeast, elevation 2,340 meters. I have a Macmillan TAC 338 with Pulsar Trail 2 LRF XP50 thermal optics." Jason Garcia, the team's combat medic, looked up sharply. "Morgan, former Special Forces Captain Rachel Morgan. I thought she died with Operation Broken Arrow back in '03. "Don't believe everything you read in military reports, Doc," the voice replied, revealing she could hear their conversation through long-range directional mics. Blackwood's mind raced through classified briefings he'd received years ago. Rachel Morgan, the whispered legend among special operations communities. The female sniper who'd broken records during the Gulf War, then disappeared into the shadowy world of deniable operations. "Those aren't typical insurgents moving toward you," Morgan continued. "They're Wagner PMC, Russian mercenaries. The group is led by Grigor Volkov, former Spetsnaz colonel." Wilson peered through his scope at the approaching fighters. "She's right. Look at their movement patterns. That's Russian small unit tactics. And those are upgraded AK-103s, not standard Taliban equipment." Reynolds checked her tactical map. History repeating itself. Russians supplying and training proxies, just like we did with the Mujahideen in the '80s. "Morgan," Blackwood broke his silence, professional skepticism wrestling with desperate hope. "If you are who you say you are, what's your proposal? We're outnumbered, outgunned, and running low on ammunition." "I'm going to create extraction corridors through their encirclement. she replied. You'll move in stages to a defensible position 400 meters northeast, a natural cave formation offering better cover and a clear exfiltration route. Blackwood hesitated. Taking tactical guidance from an unknown operator violated every protocol he'd been taught, but protocols hadn't kept them alive so far. Wilson, what's your read? He whispered. Wilson was studying the terrain through his scope. Sir, those positions she called out, I can confirm the muzzle flashes now. She's right on target, and that shot we just heard, that was at least 1,800 meters, in darkness, with crosswinds. Another shot rang out, this one from a completely different angle. A second enemy position went silent. How the hell is she moving that fast? Garcia muttered. Reynolds will move first, Morgan directed. 20 meters northeast to the pyramid-shaped rock formation. Wilson will provide covering fire. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go! As Reynolds sprinted across open ground, Blackwood watched a ballet of precision unfold. Morgan's third shot eliminated a machine gunner who had just begun to track Reynolds' movement. The timing was impossible, as if Morgan had predicted exactly when and where the threat would emerge. When Reynolds reached cover safely, Blackwood made his decision. Morgan, we're moving on your command. Wilson nodded grimly. If she's half the legend I've heard about, we might actually survive this night. The fog seemed to press closer, carrying with it the acrid smell of gunpowder and the metallic taste of fear. But for the first time in hours, there was something else. Hope. 2,100 meters away, Rachel Morgan lay perfectly still on the eastern ridge. At 63, her body carried the accumulated scars of decades in the world's most dangerous places. Silver hair, cropped short against her weathered face, caught the moonlight as she made minute adjustments to her custom Macmillan TAC 338 rifle. The thermal imaging system painted the world in shades of orange and blue, revealing heat signatures that normal night vision could never detect. Morgan watched the Russian mercenaries adjusting their formation, responding to the unexpected loss of their forward elements. They were professionals, which made them predictable to someone who had studied the playbook for over 40 years. Wind speed, 12 mm, gusting to 15. Temperature, -10 Celsius. Barometric pressure, 3012, and falling with the advancing weather front. Morgan's mind performed the ballistic calculations instinctively, while her body remained completely motionless, except for the controlled rhythm of her breathing. As she prepared for her next shot, her mind drifted briefly to Moscow, 1989. The first time she'd taken a shot beyond 1,500 meters in similar conditions. The Soviet general who never saw it coming, the beginning of her legend. The CIA had recruited her in 1982, a 22-year-old Olympic qualifying marksman with uncanny natural talent. They'd placed her in the ultra-classified Looking Glass program, where she trained under Carlos Hathcock himself, the Marine Corps sniper whose 93 confirmed kills in Vietnam had become the standard by which all others were measured. Elevation adjustment, eye through the scope, breath control, trigger press, these things are just mechanics, Hathcock had told her. True sniping is becoming the bullet, knowing its path before you fire. Morgan had internalized those lessons through decades of impossible shots. Berlin 1985, Beirut 1987, Panama 1989, Desert Storm 1991. Each mission building her reputation in the shadows of covert operations, until Operation Broken Arrow in 2003. The mission where everything went wrong. 3 teammates killed, Morgan herself critically wounded, and at the center of it all, Grigor Volkov, the Spetsnaz operative who'd betrayed their joint American-Russian counterterrorism operation. The man who'd stood over her bleeding body and whispered, "You still have much to learn." Hathcock's student. The CIA had officially listed her as killed in action, a convenient fiction that allowed Morgan to disappear into private contracting while hunting for evidence of Volkov's treachery. 20 years spent building her company, training a new generation of specialists, and waiting for Volkov to resurface. And now he had. Here in Afghanistan, running a sensitive equipment transfer to extremist elements. A Russian electronic warfare device capable of crippling NATO communications throughout the region. Morgan had tracked him for 6 months, waiting for the perfect moment to complete her mission. The SEAL team had inadvertently stumbled into her operation. Through her scope, she watched the team executing her directions. Reynolds providing covering fire, while Wilson made his move to the next position, Garcia following. Blackwood bringing up the rear with disciplined precision. "Movement on your western flank," she transmitted calmly. 3 hostiles attempting to establish a crossfire position. Morgan shifted her rifle 3 degrees, calculating the lead time for a target moving at approximately 4 miles per hour, perpendicular to her position. The TAC 338 spoke once. Through her scope, she watched the lead hostile's heat signature collapse behind cover. These weren't just random shots. Morgan was creating deliberate, safe corridors, systematically eliminating threats that would cut down the SEAL team during movement. Each shot calculated not just for immediate effect, but for its psychological impact on enemy positioning. By the time Blackwood's team had completed their third bound, Morgan could see the pattern shifting in the enemy response. The mercenaries were becoming hesitant, clustering together rather than maintaining tactical spacing. Fear was spreading through their ranks. That's when she spotted it. The Mi-8 helicopter approaching from the north. The electronic signature on her specialized detection equipment confirmed what she already suspected. "Blackwood," she transmitted, "the situation has changed. There's an Mi-8 inbound, estimated arrival 3 minutes. That's Volkov, and he's bringing the electronic warfare package with him." Blackwood's voice came back tense but controlled. "How does this affect our exfil?" "It doesn't," Morgan replied, "but it presents an opportunity. I've been tracking Volkov for 6 months. This device he's transporting cannot be allowed to reach extremist networks." A moment of silence before Blackwood responded. "What are you suggesting?" "A slight modification to our plan," Morgan said. "Get your team to the cave position as originally directed. From there, you'll have eyes on the exchange point. I need you to create a diversion while I take care of Volkov and secure the device." "You're talking about engaging superior forces for a secondary objective," Blackwood countered. "That's beyond our mission parameters." Morgan's voice remained steady. "Volkov and I have history, Lieutenant. He's the man who killed my teammates in Iraq 20 years ago. Officially, I've been dead since that day, which gives me certain operational freedoms." The final leg of the movement brought Blackwood's team to the cave position Morgan had identified. From there, they watched as the Mi-8 descended to a small plateau 500 meters away. The rotors kicked up swirling clouds of dust and snow as the aircraft touched down. Through her scope, Morgan saw him for the first time in 2 decades, Grigor Volkov. 60 years old now, but still moving with the lethal confidence that had made him Spetsnaz's most effective operative. 4 security personnel flanked him as he emerged from the helicopter, carrying a reinforced metallic case. "Target confirmed," Morgan whispered, though she wasn't transmitting. "This ends tonight." She adjusted her position slightly, preparing for the most difficult shot of her career. The Mi-8's engine housing from 2,400 meters. From a custom compartment in her rifle case, she extracted a single hand-loaded round. Tungsten cord, meticulously crafted for this specific purpose. Next to her scope, she placed a small photograph of 3 faces. Her fallen teammates from Operation Broken Arrow. "Almost finished, friends." Into her transmitter, she spoke with clinical precision. "Blackwood, on my signal, I need your team to create a diversion. Draw attention away from the helicopter. I'll disable the aircraft and take care of Volkov." "Copy that," Blackwood replied. Standing by for your mark. Morgan took 3 deep, controlled breaths, calculated final adjustments for windage, elevation, temperature, and air density. Her finger settled on the trigger with the lightest of touches. Execute in 3, 2, 1. Mark. Wilson's 40mm grenade launcher sent its payload arcing through the night, impacting 30 meters from the exchange point. The explosion sent mercenaries diving for cover, momentarily drawing attention away from the helicopter. Reynolds moved like a shadow, using the distraction to work her way closer to the meeting point. Garcia provided precision covering fire, eliminating a guard who spotted Reynolds' approach. Blackwood engaged 2 mercenaries directly, his movements economical and lethal. Through her scope, Morgan watched Volkov's head snap up at the commotion. The Russian's training took over immediately. He turned toward the helicopter, barking orders to his pilot to prepare for immediate departure. That's when Volkov paused. His posture changed subtly. He scanned the ridgeline slowly, methodically, as if sensing something beyond the immediate threat of the SEAL team. Then he smiled, a cold, knowing expression, and spoke into an open radio channel. "Is that you, Rachel? Still alive after all these years?" Morgan froze. Volkov knew she was here. Somehow, he'd anticipated her presence. 2 decades of planning, and still he was one step ahead. "Don't move, Blackwood," she transmitted quickly. "Volkov knows I'm here. He's trying to locate my position." The Russian mercenaries had regained their composure, returning fire toward the SEAL team's positions. Reynolds was pinned down 20 meters from the exchange point. The helicopter's engines spooled up to departure speed. Morgan faced an impossible choice. Take the shot at the helicopter and reveal her position, or let Volkov escape with the device. In her ear, Blackwood's voice came through clearly. "Morgan, whatever history you have with Volkov, whatever you need to do, we've got your back." It was enough. Morgan centered her crosshairs on the Mi-8's exposed engine housing, compensating for the spinning rotors and building wind. "For Carlos," she whispered and squeezed the trigger. The custom TAC 338 delivered its specialized payload with devastating precision. The tungsten cord round pierced the helicopter's engine housing, causing an immediate catastrophic failure. Secondary explosions rippled through the aircraft as fuel lines ruptured. In the chaos, Volkov leapt clear of the helicopter, still clutching the metal case. He rolled to his feet with the agility of a much younger man, scanning the ridgeline where Morgan's shot had originated. Through her scope, Morgan saw his face clearly for the first time in 20 years. The same cold eyes that had looked down at her as she lay bleeding in the Iraqi desert. He was staring directly at her position, 2,000 meters away, as if he could see through darkness and distance. "I see you, old friend," he said into the open channel. Morgan shifted her aim, centering the crosshairs on Volkov's chest. Her finger tightened on the trigger. But Volkov wasn't alone. He'd positioned himself with the metal case held prominently, the electronic warfare device as a shield. If she took the shot, the device would be destroyed, potentially releasing classified technology across the battlefield. This had been his plan all along, a trap within a trap. "Hawk, this is Phantom," Morgan transmitted to Reynolds. "I can't take the shot without compromising the package. You're going to have to get to Volkov." Reynolds' acknowledgement came through as a single click on the radio. Morgan watched through her scope as the SEAL team executed a coordinated assault. Wilson and Garcia providing overlapping fields of fire, while Blackwood and Reynolds maneuvered toward Volkov's position. The Russian mercenaries fought with professional discipline, but they were outmatched by the combination of SEAL tactics and Morgan's precision overwatch. One by one, she eliminated threats to the advancing team, each shot coming from a slightly different position to create the illusion of multiple snipers. Volkov backed toward a ravine, still holding the case as a shield. He lost most of his team but remained confident in his escape plan. Morgan could see it in his posture, the practiced arrogance of a man who'd never truly faced consequences. "You missed your chance, Rachel," he taunted over the open channel. 20 years of waiting, and you still hesitate when it matters." Reynolds was closing the distance, moving from cover to cover with fluid precision. 30 meters, 20 meters. Volkov edged closer to the ravine where, Morgan suspected, he had a secondary extraction plan in place. "You could have taken the shot," Volkov continued, "destroyed the device, killed me. Instead, you chose the mission over vengeance. Always the good soldier. That's why I'll always win." 10 meters separated Reynolds from Volkov now. The Russian drew a sidearm with his free hand, firing toward her position. Morgan tracked the engagement through her scope, waiting for a clean shot that wouldn't risk the device. It came when Reynolds executed a perfect flanking maneuver, forcing Volkov to pivot away from the ravine. For just a fraction of a second, his torso was exposed beyond the metal case. Morgan took the shot. The bullet struck Volkov in the shoulder, spinning him away from the ravine edge. The case slipped from his grasp as he staggered backward. Reynolds closed the final distance, securing the device while Blackwood covered her advance. Volkov dropped to his knees, clutching his wounded shoulder. Through her scope, Morgan could see the shock in his expression, not from the pain, but from the realization that his perfect plan had failed. "Checkmate," Morgan whispered. 30 minutes later, the battlefield had gone quiet. Morgan made her way down from her sniper's nest, breaking down and concealing her equipment with practiced efficiency. By the time she reached the SEAL team's position, they had secured the area and were awaiting extraction. Volkov sat on a rock, his shoulder bandaged, hands bound behind his back. His eyes widened slightly as Morgan emerged from the shadows, a silver-haired woman in black tactical gear, moving with the fluid economy of someone who'd spent a lifetime in the field. "The ghost herself," Volkov said softly. "2 decades hunting me, and here we are." Morgan didn't spare him a glance. Instead, she approached Blackwood, who was examining the electronic warfare device they'd captured. "Next-generation communications disruptor," she explained. "Russian military intelligence has been developing it for years. Would have given extremist networks the ability to blind NATO operations throughout the region." Blackwood studied her face. "You knew about this all along. That's why you were in position when we called for help." Morgan nodded. "I've been tracking Volkov for 6 months. Your team happened to drop into the middle of my operation. Fortunate timing." "For us, certainly," Reynolds said, approaching with respect in her eyes. "Those shots you made, I've never seen anything like it. Even Carlos Hathcock would have been impressed." A ghost of a smile crossed Morgan's weathered face. "Carlos used to say that rifle was just a tool. It's the hand that holds it that matters." In the distance, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors grew louder. American extraction incoming. "You're not staying for the debrief, are you?" Blackwood asked. Morgan shook her head. "Officially, I've been dead since 2003. I'd prefer to keep it that way." She reached into her pocket and extracted a silver and black patch depicting an eagle. "This belonged to the Looking Glass program. We were ghosts before ghosts existed. Women who could go places and do things that male operators couldn't." She pressed the patch into Blackwood's hand. "I'm not the only one still out there. We keep watch over special operations teams when needed, guardian angels from a different era." Blackwood turned the patch over in his palm. "How do we contact you if we need help again?" Morgan reached into her pack and removed a specialized radio transmitter. "Emergency frequency only. Guardian angels don't make regular appearances." She glanced at Volkov. "Make sure he faces justice this time. Real justice, not the political convenience that let him walk 20 years ago." The extraction helicopter appeared over the mountain ridge, powerful searchlights sweeping the landing zone. When Blackwood turned back, Morgan was already fading into the shadows. "Morgan," he called after her, "what you did tonight, It won't appear in any report. No recognition, no medals. She paused at the edge of darkness. Heroism isn't about recognition or medals, Lieutenant. It's about standing in the gap when others can't. Doing what must be done because it's right, not because anyone will know. She nodded toward his team. You exemplified that spirit tonight. Thank you for reminding me why the mission still matters. Then she was gone, disappearing into the Afghan night like the phantom her legend claimed her to be. 1 year later at Fort Bragg, Blackwood stood before a class of young operators, the eagle patch now fixed permanently to his instructor's uniform. He'd never filed a complete report about that night in Afghanistan. Some stories were better left untold, especially when they involved operators who officially didn't exist. A package had arrived for him that morning. No return address. Inside, he'd found Carlos Hathcock's original sniper manual, signed by the master himself with a simple note: to pass on to the next generation. Traditions never die. They just get reborn in those worthy of carrying them. RM. Blackwood smiled, running his fingers over the manual's worn cover. Somewhere out there, a 64-year-old ghost was still watching over America's warriors, standing sentinel in the darkness where legends lived. In the shadows between worlds, guardian angels continued their endless vigil,